No. Need my old battery.
Yeah. This will be a brief trip summary of our Ian and I's trip to Johannesburg Mountain, the northeast Buttress. We heard about this climb. I heard about this climb based off the Washington Difficult 10 list that somebody put together, and we are suckers for pain, so we decided to try and knock a few off the list. This one seemed like one of the more fun ones on the list, and we had already tried and failed on Nooksack Tower when we did Price Glacier. So early October, there's no snow yet. We drove over Friday after work, car camped at the Cascade Pass trailhead here just at dusk. Woke up the next morning and it was howling wind, so we slept until like 8 a.m. Meanwhile, the trailhead is a complete zoo due to all the tourists hiking Cascade Pass. So if you want to do this climb, get there early, or you can park way down the road as well, as there were cars lining all the way down this road for over a mile by mid-morning. So 8 a.m. we decided just to give it a go. I convinced Ian to at least get started in the wind. We walked down the road a little ways down to the creek, filtered some water, and then you bushwhack a little bit and up this here snowfield, which looked just about like this, with solid ice when we were there, up to this choke point here, I would say, and this is where we chopped out an ice bollard, and we ended up wrapping off of that down into the moat between the ice and the cliffs, onto a small ledge where we got onto the rock and probably climbed, honestly, maybe the most technical scrambling of the trip, but it was only 5.4, which I've seen this route advertised by a lot of people as 5.7. There's probably a 5.7 variation, but the path of least resistance is not 5.7. It was maybe 5.5 at the worst. So we scrambled about a pitch or two of that straight up until we got into this bowl here. There was no snow, as shown on the AllTrails 3D. And from that little flat bowl, which would make a great bivy site if needed, we pressed on, which is where the bushwhacking starts. It's pretty obvious. You start just basically bushwhacking up 45, 50 degree dirt slopes. And then as you get higher, it gets steeper. You start climbing trees really to get up the dirt cliffs. And it's not that bad. I didn't think it was that sketchy. The trees kind of protect you from falling, so it was not as scary, in my opinion, or in Ian's, as some other people advertise. You can cut over into this gully between these two ribs. The one we took, this one's the 1951. This one's the 1957. We followed this one, the 1951, which would be the eastern of the two. We stayed on that most of the time. We could have probably saved time by going in this gully because it's less vegetated, but you really just bushwhack your way up this ridge until the trees fade away and it's kind of steep heather hiking slopes. Nothing too crazy. Then once you get above the heather where there's no vegetation, you scramble up some third, fourth class, kind of easy stuff. And then it gets hard, it gets steep. This would probably be 5.7 to get to camp, but you can just cut right over to the 1957 rib and climb some really solid but low fifth class terrain, which we soloed easily. To the typical bivy site, we made it there by like 2 p.m. And could not justify staying there, so we continued on. This glacier was completely blue ice, and we only had one ice axe, so we stayed off of that. Walked up the moat between the glacier and the rocks, maybe doing a little bit of fourth class scrambling there. And then we climbed up this kind of head wall here to avoid the glacier head wall, which looked like water ice 3 at least, with crevasses spanning the whole thing, so steeper steps that were completely vertical. We stayed on these rocks, which was low fifth, soloed this entire route up to this point, and then we crossed the top of the glacier, dropped down on the other side a little ways, and up to the summit. That evening, I think we were on the summit by 5:30, maybe even 5 p.m., so short day. From the summit, we descended in daylight, and this entire reason this route is on the difficult 10, I would assume, is due to the descent. It's extremely time consuming and tedious. You basically down climb extremely loose, 4th class terrain for like a mile of traversing here, all the way over like 10, 15 of these little riblets. Then you finally kind of rejoin the ridge crest, more tedious down climbing down this long, loose gully. Ian jogged down all this, so depending on your tolerance for speeding down loose rock with a ton of exposure, you might be faster than me, and you probably will be, but it took us forever. We finally made it to this notch here at like 7 p.m., which I'm sure has been used for a bivy site before, but we built a little wall. I'll show a picture here, but we built a little wall on the leading edge. It was super exposed, but an amazing bivy site. You can see the parking lot down below, and then all the other peaks in the Cascade Pass area, Forbidden, Buckner, Good, all the other summits we had already done. Woke up at sunrise, maybe 6:30, and we're on our way down by 7. Found a wrap anchor pretty quick that was decent. Made 2 or 3 wraps with a 70. I think actually only 2 wraps with a 70. The wrap anchors were really sparse. I think we missed a few, which maybe they're not as obvious as you would think, but we ended up down climbing this whole stretch here to the CJ Cole, which also had snow, and you could definitely bivy there. I would recommend that if you can make it there on day 1. Anyways, then just down this talus field, across these beautiful meadows with amazing views. There's tons of running water down here, even in October, so keep that in mind. We spent a lot of time melting snow up here when we didn't have to. There's running water down below. Anyways, you keep traversing underneath this peak. I think it's Cascade Peak. Stay as high as possible to get underneath that, and then you start the horrible reascent up the Doug's Direct route, which takes you up steep heather fields, across these loose rock fields, up. I think it was like 1,500 feet at least, reascending, and you almost go over the ridge crest here. This is all 4th class scrambling up this, and we were exhausted by the time you get to the top. And then you look down, and it looks like extremely steep, tedious descending again for hours on end. I thought we were never going to get home at this point. But Ian skipped on down like a mountain goat, and I followed, and the terrain actually eases up. You really veer to the right here, and it gets quite a bit more mellow, so not as intimidating as it looks from the top. Went down, hung a left, tried to rejoin this ptarmigan traverse trail, but the glacier was so melted out, there was like a 50, 60 foot deep moat in between, and we did not want to set up a wrap to get onto there and then have to cross the moat back over somehow to get off of it shortly after. So we went along these really little narrow 5th class slippery ledges, which was the last technical part. The ptarmigan traverse trail is marked by cairns once you join it. It's pretty easy to head down to Cascade Pass, and then it's just the mind-numbing switchbacks back to the parking lot, which we did in short time. Trip report-wise, we used Steph Abeg's beta, as I think a lot of people do. They put up a pretty fast round trip time. I think we were almost the same as them. Everything went very smoothly for us. We might have actually even been a little bit faster. I would just keep in mind the descent is over half the time of this route. It's miserable, and it's just miserable. There's nothing else to it. Honestly, this is the first route I've done on difficult 10, but I would say it's certainly easier than Mount Good, even by the standard route, and probably easier than a few other climbs we've done in Washington. So I'll be interested to see how the rest of the difficult 10 list holds up, but I would not put this one on my hardest 10 peaks in Washington as of now. I thought the route was awesome. The tree climbing was really unique and fun. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on my AllTrails. You can see all the stats here, and I got a write-up and some pictures as well. And then most importantly, a GPX track, which I would highly recommend following our route if you're planning on doing this one. So give me a follow on AllTrails or something, and check it out if you're planning on doing this climb. I'd recommend it. Gear-wise, you can see all my gear on lighter pack here. Took the typical pared down summer kit. I would not take dedicated rock climbing shoes, even if you suck at rock climbing. This is still like 5.5 at the most. Can absolutely do in mountaineering boots. Speaking of which, this is my first trip with the new Sportiva Equilibrium tops. They were great. The built-in gaiter makes your feet really sweaty if it's hot out. So that was the only downside, but they rock climbs great, almost as good as my Trengo Tower Extremes that were full shank. So hopefully those will last me another year or two of solid climbing. The rest of this was about the same. I do think we took a 70-meter rope for this, so it was quite a bit heavier, maybe 10 pounds, but we alternated carrying it. Our packs were super light the whole time, which is key because the trees really try to grab onto everything you have in your backpack. Nothing else to mention here. Check out my list if you're interested in the gear we brought.